welcome to Gangster Profile, the place where power, greed, and violence have left their mark. Here, we tell the true stories of the underworld, from the streets of Chicago to the mountains of Colombia, of the legends who wrote history and paid for it with blood. Every rise has its price, every myth, its dark side. Here you'll discover who they really were, the men and women who became symbols of crime, their deeds, their fears, their final moments. This is no glorification, it is a journey into the darkest truth of humanity, where every story begins with power and ends with blood. Welcome to Gangster Profile. The truth knows no heroes. He was more than a gangster, to some, a folk hero, to others, the face of evil. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria, a name that still unites fear, fascination, and myth. The man who rose from a poor boy in Medellín to become the most powerful drug lord the world had ever seen. A man with wealth that rivaled nations, and who died in a hail of bullets, alone, hunted, on a rooftop. But his story is more than a legend of blood and money. It tells of a nation in chaos, of power, politics, poverty, and a society that created its own monsters. Pablo Escobar, the symbol of a century that believed everything could be bought, even life, even death. But who was this man, really? How did someone rise from nothing to rule an empire built on cocaine, violence, and fear? And why? Do people still worship him today without ever understanding what he truly stood for? This is the story of the rise and fall of the drug king of Medellín. But behind the fame and power was a man whose truth was darker than the world would ever know. Colombia, mid-1950s, a country caught between civil war and hope. In the small town of Rio Negro, near Medellín, Pablo Escobar was born on December 1st, 1949. His father, a humble farmer, his mother, a teacher. They fought to survive. Even as a child, Pablo showed two things: ambition and fearlessness. While other kids played, he hustled, trading anything he could sell: old bicycle tires, used tombstones. He stole, he bargained, he won. Medellín in the 1960s, a city in transformation. Rich neighborhoods filled with luxury, poor districts filled with dust, crime, and despair. Here, Pablo grew up, between hunger and ambition. He dreamed of wealth, of power. Not as a politician, not as a scholar, but as a man no one could ignore. He saw corrupt cops take bribes. He watched politicians speak and lie. And he learned early, power is not about justice. Power belongs to those who take it. On the streets of Envigado, his journey began. Small thefts, smuggling, forgery. He sold stolen exams, hijacked cars, smuggled cigarettes. To many, he was just another street kid. To himself, a king without a crown. Step by step, the world opened before him. A world that would soon consume all of Colombia. Early 1970s. The world discovers cocaine. What was a luxury drug in the clubs of Miami and New York became gold in the mountains of Colombia. Pablo Escobar saw the potential. While others still smuggled, he built a system. Control over every stage, from the farmer to the pilot, from the lab to the landing strip. He joined local smugglers, but soon he was the one making the rules. A deal went wrong. A murder changed everything. And Pablo began to rule the city. He founded the Medellín Cartel, with partners who would later become his enemies. His network expanded: Colombia, Panama, Nicaragua, Mexico, the United States. Every week, tons of cocaine flew into the U.S. Every week, Escobar made millions. He bought houses, cars, planes, and people, judges, police, politicians. He was everywhere, untouchable. In Medellín, they soon called him El Patron, To the poor, a hero who built schools, football fields, handed out money. To the state, the most dangerous man in South America. He even created his own militia, Los Sicarios, young men who killed for fame, honor, and a handful of bills. His power grew like a disease no one could stop. In 1979, the United States declared war on drugs. But Escobar laughed. He had more money than nations, more soldiers than the police, and one goal greater than the law itself: immortality. Early 1980s. Pablo Escobar was at his peak. He controlled around 80% of the world's cocaine trade. He earned up to $60 million in a single day. His fortune was estimated at over $30 billion. He owned 800 houses, 141 planes, 20 helicopters, and 32 yachts. And his private paradise, Hacienda Nápoles, an estate the size of a city with a zoo, a bull ring, and life-size dinosaurs made of concrete. He bought loyalty with money and with fear. His motto was simple: Plata o Plomo, silver or lead, bribe or death. To the poor, he remained a benefactor. To the state, a monster. In 1982, Escobar was elected to the Colombian Congress, a drug lord turned politician, the height of his hubris. But the public rebelled. Journalists exposed his past. Judges and politicians demanded justice. One after another, they died. Bombs, assassinations, kidnappings. Escobar waged war on his own country. In 1989, he bombed a passenger plane to kill a rival. Over 100 innocent people died. Later, he blew up the headquarters of Colombia's security forces. His message was clear: no one is safe. Medellín became a war zone. Children carried guns. Fear became normal. And yet even then, many still called him Robin Hood. Because he gave away money. Because he saw the poverty the state ignored. Because he offered hope when no one else dared. Escobar was more than a man. He was a myth, fed by blood, poverty, and injustice. But myths always fall. (1991). Colombia and the United States increased the pressure. The Medellín Cartel was crumbling, his partners arrested, his supply lines destroyed, his enemies everywhere. Escobar offered to surrender, but only on his terms. He built a prison just for himself. La Catedral, a luxury fortress with a bar, waterfall, and football field. He called it prison. The world called it a joke. From there, he continued to run his empire, by phone, by money, by blood. But the government's patience ran out. In 1992, Escobar was to be moved to a real prison. That night, he escaped, just like that. No resistance, no shots fired. For a year, he was free again. But the world had changed. The Medellín Cartel was history. The Cali Cartel took over, and the hunt for Escobar became the biggest manhunt in Latin American history. Colombia, supported by the United States, formed a special unit, Bloc de Búsqueda, the search block, with only one goal: to see Escobar dead. They tracked his family, his allies, his every move, day by day, night by night, until December 2nd, 1993. A phone call gave him away. A modest house in the neighborhood of Los Olivos, Medellín. He tried to run, climbed onto the rooftop. Gunfire echoed. A bullet struck his head and leg. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was dead. 44 years old, his body lay in blood, beside a phone. For the state, the end of a nightmare. For his followers, the death of a saint. Over 20,000 people attended his funeral. Women cried. Men shouted his name. Children carried his pictures like holy icons. But what they mourned was not a man. It was an illusion, a lie he had created himself. After his death, nothing was simple. Colombia was traumatized. a country that would take decades to recover. Escobar's empire crumbled, but his legend grew. Movies, books, series, from Hollywood to Netflix. He became a pop icon, a tragic symbol. People sold t-shirts with his face. Tourists visited his hacienda. His name appeared on mugs, posters, souvenirs. But behind the glitter lies a truth many forget. Over 4,000 deaths are directly linked to his orders. Judges, journalists, police officers, children. Destroyed families, broken cities. To some, he remains a hero of the poor. To others, the embodiment of evil. But perhaps he was both. A mirror of the society that created him. A product of violence, inequality, and despair. Colombia still lives with his shadow, in the neighborhoods where poverty and hope walk hand in hand, in the memory of a man who wanted everything and lost it all. Today, his story stands as a warning that wealth without limits is always paid for in blood, that power born from fear never lasts, and that even legends eventually fall. Pablo Escobar is long dead, but his name lives on, as a warning, as a myth, as a reflection of a world that could never get enough. The story ends here, but the shadows remain. True stories about power, money, and the darkness of the underworld. If the truth behind the myths fascinates you, then give the video a like and subscribe to the channel to join us in the search for the darkest chapters of history. Behind every name lies more than a crime. Behind every legend, a human being. Some only wanted to survive, others to rule the world. But in the end, they all lose the same things: freedom, trust, and themselves. Where legends die and stories become immortal. See you soon on Gangster Profile. The truth knows no heroes.